Welcome to Muck You, the podcast that exposes corruption, calls out hypocrisy, and digs through the muck others try to bury. I'm David Wheeler, here with my co-host, Colonel Mo Davis. Over to you, Mo, to introduce today's special guest.
Well, thanks, David. And hey, it's great to be back. We've had a little bit of a hiatus while we both been on vacation and done some stuff. So good to be back with you. Yeah, again, we've had a long list of great guests, and tonight is no exception. Judge Toby Hampson is one of the 15 judges on the North Carolina Court of Appeals. He's one of the 3 judges that are up for re-election in 2026. He's got an impressive background. He's a graduate of the North Carolina School of Math and Sciences. I can assure you I was not invited to attend there. He went to American University up in D.C., graduated from Campbell Law School, and he's been serving on the court since 2018. So Judge Hampson, we really do appreciate you taking time to join us.
Well, gentlemen, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to the conversation.
All right, so how did you get into the School of Science or Math and Science? I lived in Durham for a while, and that was right up the street from me, but they never invited me in.
Well, I always joke that I was the dumb jock at science and math. No, I was very lucky. I was very lucky as a product of North Carolina public schools. My mom was a math instructor at Sandhills Community College down in Moore County. I attended schools like Sandhills Farm Life Elementary and Union Pines High. And so I think, all that really gave me a really good grounding and just what an incredible opportunity and experience to have a school like the School of Science and Math up in Durham. And of course, now there's one in Morganton too.
Right.
So it's a really unique opportunity, and I was glad to have it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things I think a lot of folks aren't aware of, but they really are a real treasure for the state. Okay, so you're one of 15 judges on the North Carolina Court of Appeals. There's currently a 12-3 Republican majority on the court. And I guess just by happenstance, the 3 judges that are up for re-election next time around are all Democrats. And it looks like the Republicans would prefer to have a 15-0 Court of Appeals. So can you explain to folks just a bit that aren't intimately familiar with our judicial system? What's the role of the North Carolina Court of Appeals?
Sure. So in North Carolina, there are effectively 3 levels of courts. First, you have the trial courts in each county, in all 100 counties all around North Carolina, our district and superior courts. And those are the courts most people are familiar with, right? That's where you go if you have a traffic ticket or if you have a court date and you have a single judge sitting on there, maybe a jury. That's where we have evidence and trials and the things most people are familiar with. At the other end of the spectrum is our North Carolina Supreme Court. That is the highest court in our state. And so the North Carolina Court of Appeals sits in the middle. And the North Carolina Court of Appeals hears appeals from all 100 counties in North Carolina, all across the state, in practically every area of the law, both criminal and civil. On the criminal side, we'll hear everything from an appeal of a DUI, traffic stops and DUIs, all the way up to first-degree murder, where life in prison is imposed. On the civil side, we hear just the whole gamut, everything from family law cases to personal injury cases, cases involving parental rights, cases involving environmental permits, property cases, contract cases, tax, workers' comp, just the whole run of the mill. So really, if you have a legal issue in North Carolina, one way or another, our court has spoken on it and issued a decision involving that area of law. We don't hear evidence. We simply look to see if there was an error committed by the trial court below. So we're looking for legal errors and issuing opinions that help guide the judges, the lawyers, and the litigants themselves figure out all these different areas of law.
Yeah, I guess another important question is there are 15 judges on the court. I noticed that 7 of the 15 are from Campbell Law School. So isn't that court stacking?
Well, we're really proud of Campbell Law. We always felt like it gave us, just like School of Science and Math, it gave us a really good background in practicing law, and particularly practicing law in North Carolina. And
Right.
so when we're dealing with these state-specific issues, I always feel like it gave us a really good grounding in that regard.
Yeah, well, my JD is from North Carolina Central, and it looks like the only member of the court is your colleague Jefferson Griffin, who is a Central grad. So we're underrepresented. But it looks like there are 3 of you up for reelection: John Arrowwood and Allegra Collins. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, she is not running for reelection. Is that right?
That's correct. Judge Collins is not running for re-election, so that will be an open seat on your ballot in 2026. But as you mentioned before, these are the last 3 seats held by Democrats on the court, and they're all up in 2026.
And all of these seats, they're statewide. So this isn't something you only have to be concerned about if you live in a particular area. This affects everybody from Murphy to Manio.
That's exactly right. These are statewide elections, and that's true of our Court of Appeals, and it's true of the Supreme Court as well. So they are absolutely critical elections. The only other statewide race on the ballot in 2026 will be this little Senate race we keep hearing about.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be interesting, and boy, it's going to be a lot of money spent here in North Carolina on that one, I bet. Let me, like you said, we talked about it's a 12-3 Republican majority right now. So why does it matter? I mean, if it goes 15-0, why would that make a difference? I mean, justice is supposed to be blind, so why does it matter trying to hang on to 3 Democratic seats?
Well, I think a great example right now was in fact the litigation that involved Judge Jefferson Griffin and Justice Allison Riggs. And we sit in 3 judge panels. And so I was assigned to the panel hearing that case when it came to my court. And, and I wrote a dissent, meaning the other 2 judges who happened to be Republicans wrote an opinion that would have potentially changed the outcome of that Supreme Court race. Where, remember, there was a 734 vote margin of victory there, and that would have potentially thrown out the ballots of over 60,000 folks here in North Carolina, as well as potentially throwing out the ballots of our military members and other overseas voters and their adult children that would have all been thrown out during in that race, which would have had the potential to change the race. I dissented. So we had a 2-1 vote in that case, and I wrote a long dissent. And that dissent, while it didn't carry the day in our court, ultimately, in my view, helped provide a roadmap for first, frankly, our state Supreme Court, and then subsequently a federal judge to really step in and say, listen, we shouldn't be changing the rules of an election after votes have been cast, right? And while the election is ongoing or over. And so I think that's a critical example of how having even one dissenting voice at the court makes a huge difference. It provides balance. It provides a different perspective, and we're committed to upholding the rule of law. We're committed to standing up for the rights of all North Carolinians, and so I think it's absolutely crucial that we maintain democratic voices on our courts.
Yeah, I noticed in that particular case, that was Jefferson Griffin versus North Carolina State Board of Elections and Allison Riggs. Came out on April 7th of this year. The majority opinion was 36 pages, and your dissenting opinion was 66 pages. But there was one part in there in particular that really caught my attention. And here's what you wrote. You said, the majority makes much of the fact eligibility to vote is determined as of election day. Despite professing this basic tenet, the majority changes the rules of the 2024 election and only for one race, months after Election Day. It does so even though there is no actual showing or forecast that any challenged voter was not registered or otherwise unqualified to vote. Worse still, with no supporting authority, the majority invents out of whole cloth an illusory 15-day, quote, cure period that is no remedy at all. This is truly legislating from the bench. And legislating from the bench is one of those terms. I mean, it seems like, when there's a Democrat in the White House, we hear a lot about debt and deficit. And when there are Democrats on the court, we hear a lot about legislating from the bench. But why'd you put that line in there?
Because that's, in my view, that's exactly what it was. It was by judicial fiat, a court imposing new election rules that were not promulgated by statute, right? They weren't passed by the General Assembly. They weren't adopted by an executive agency like the State Board of Elections through its rulemaking process. These were rules that were being imposed by judges, and you're right. We're often accused of that, but I think it's critical to identify that when it's happening, because our job is to interpret and apply the law. It's not to make the law, and so and that's what I tried to do in that dissent, was to try and simply interpret and apply the law as it stood, and not create something just out of whole cloth.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I've been a member of the U.S. Supreme Court bar for about 37 years and did some appellate work there with back when Ken Starr was the Solicitor General. But I remember when Chief Justice Roberts, during his confirmation hearing, said, the role of an appellate judge is to call balls and strikes. It doesn't seem like that's the case anymore. And I was looking at the numbers. Gallup, does a poll every year where they look at confidence in different institutions and confidence in the courts. In 2002, it was 50%. This year it's 27. So it's been cut almost in half in a little over 2 decades. So what do you attribute that to, and how do we restore confidence in our judicial system?
Yeah, Hamilton wrote in the Federalist Papers, and I'll paraphrase, and don't worry, I won't sing it. But the courts are really, of the three branches.
Actually, Judge, if you could sing it, that would be terrific.
that'll boost our ratings.
Yeah, come on, let's.
I don't know. It might bring a swift end to the podcast. I don't know. No, if he said of the three branches of government, the judiciary is the weakest branch. The executive has the power of the sword. The president has the army and the law enforcement capability. The legislature has the purse strings, right? They're the ones that pass the budgets and appropriate funds. What the courts have is the trust of the people. And, that's our only mechanism for really having any authority, for having a mandate, and for trusting that people will follow our rulings, as if they believe in a true independent judiciary, because we are the direct liaison between the people and the other two branches of government, right? That's where you come to challenge statutes. That's where you come to defend yourself against criminal charges brought by the state. That's where people interact with the law, is through our courts. And so I think what we've seen is a constant drumbeat attempting to politicize the courts, to make the decisions political. Here in North Carolina, judicial races were made partisan races. So we run as Democrats, we run as Republicans. And so I think there's just this increasing sense amongst folks that our courts are more beholden to the politics than before. I think judges are always viewed as being above politics, irrespective of your philosophical leaning. But these days, I think just that injection of and constant drumbeat of partisanship, has really, I think, does threaten to diminish public trust in the judiciary. And I think it's incumbent upon us as judges to work to maintain and restore that public trust. It's absolutely critical that our courts are there for the people and not just for partisan interests. So so it's my belief, we really should stand for the rule of law and to uphold justice and equity for everybody, for all North Carolinians, no matter who you are, where you come from, or how much or little you have.
So Toby, one of the things that Mo and I enjoy talking about is kind of the way Democrats have done things in the past. Is this a situation where maybe we should be partisan in the courts? The Republicans are not going to be less partisan. That's clear from the latest, Rick's decision at the appeals level, at least. I'm not advocating that, you take cases and rule in my favor because I'm in court all the time. But is there a situation when we should be partisan? I'm putting you on the spot, man.
No, you are, and that's good, because I think one of the places that we, as certainly as Democratic judicial candidates, have to be braver. We have to be bolder, and that's in being willing to talk about our values, which is something I think as Democrats we've been reticent to do as judicial candidates. We want to run on our experience, on our our competence, our ability to do the job, the fact that we believe in a fair, impartial, independent judiciary, which, by the way, is a democratic value. That perhaps in some ways we do lose the electorate in many instances. And when I say talk about our values, I don't mean talk about how we'd rule on any particular case or rule that we have any particular interests. But that we do stand up for the rule of law, that we do believe in our fundamental constitutional freedoms and rights under our federal and state constitution, and that we as Democratic judges are the ones standing up for those values. And so I think there is an element there where it's absolutely critical that we are able to express our values as Democrats and Democratic judges. To the point is if we do that and we express those values, then we will be judges not just for Democrats and not against Republicans, but for all North Carolinians, because that, at the end of the day, is truly what we stand for. When I wrote that dissent in the Supreme Court election case, I wasn't looking at the voter registrations of who the potential voters were, and so I was just writing to uphold what I thought was right under the law and the facts of the case.
Right. All right. Well, that was a very diplomatic and judicial answer, and I appreciate that to a pretty broad-faced question. So, let's talk politics a little bit here. Obviously, I'm a big fan of yours. We met when I was running for the state senate down in at the Rutherford County Democrats dinner, and went out afterwards and had a bunch of laughs and a good time. And I've really enjoyed getting to know you and your wife. But why did you choose being a judge instead of legislative or executive branch?
Well, for me, it suits my skill set. People often say, what made you want to become a judge? And for me, it was very specific. I wanted to be a court of appeals judge. That's where I grew up as a lawyer. I was a law clerk for several judges on our Court of Appeals as a young lawyer. Most of my practice was in the North Carolina Court of Appeals, handling appeals of all kinds. I love the work. Our work is primarily research and writing driven. And that's, and I love that. I love using writing and to persuade. I love using, writing to advocate. And so for me, that the judicial direction was the one that seemed to fit most nicely with my particular set of skills, I guess.
I'm curious, after your dissent in the Supreme Court case, our relations with Judge Griffin.
I will say we've managed to maintain cordiality. We're not necessarily close, but we maintain a level of professionalism at the court. I would say one thing about our court that's maybe different than the legislature is we actually have to get the work done. We have to decide cases.
Right.
We have to, even if we disagree, we have to work together to get the opinion out. We don't have the ability just to close up shop and end the session and go away without issuing opinions. It's absolutely critical that we do the work of the state, and so that's something we continue to do.
Yeah, back when I was doing some work at the U.S. Supreme Court, the clerk back then was a guy named Bill Souter, who was a retired Army two-star. And it surprised me because, the perception was that, the opposite ends of the spectrum back in those days was you had Scalia on one end and Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the other. And I remember General Souter telling me that, one of the things that would probably surprise the public the most were how close of friends they were, that ideologically they were polar opposites. But their families, they enjoyed the opera and they'd go out to, dinner and to the opera. And, personally, they were great friends, even though when they put the robes on, they were typically, diametrically opposed. And I'm just wondering, is that same kind of relationship on the Court of Appeals?
Yeah, in large part, yeah. We generally all get along pretty well. It's a lot different at the court these days. It used to be everybody was in the courthouse and in chambers. Now I see a lot of my colleagues kind of work more remotely, and so I miss those kind of organic conversations where you can, debate, offer suggestions, offer improvements, collaborate, or disagree, kind of in person and through those organic, natural conversations that happen in the courthouse. But these days it happens a lot more over email. So, that's definitely been a change in the last couple of years.
Right. Well, North Carolina truly is a purple state. Over the last couple of elections, we voted Republican, on the presidential side and Democratic on the gubernatorial side. And, it seems like we truly are like a 50-50 state. So, as an attorney, it's somewhat concerning to see that, there's Republicans fought really hard for that one more seat. I don't know what you can do with with was it a 6-1 majority? You can't do with a 5-2 majority on the Supreme Court, or what you can do with 15 judges instead of 12 on the Court of Appeals. But do you see any path forward to making the judiciary less partisan?
I do see a path, and I think it sort of begins in 2026. As you said, we are a 12-3 court, and currently our state Supreme Court is a 5-2 Republican majority court. So in 2026, on our Supreme Court, Justice Anita Earls, a Democrat, is the only Supreme Court justice up for election. And on our court, as you said, the 3 Court of Appeal seats, including mine, are up, all Democrats. So I think the first thing we have to do is hold each of those seats in 2026, win re-election, and hold that 3rd seat on our court. In 2028, there are 3 seats that come up on our state Supreme Court and 5 seats that are up on my court. And y'all can do the math. If we can pick up seats in 2028, that will go a long way to restoring a more balance to both courts. But it's critical then that we keep these seats in 2026, so that there are those pickup opportunities in 2028 to bring balance to the court, and through that, I think hopefully help at least kind of help restore that public trust, and help help kind of work to take some of that partisanship out of the courts.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I mean, obviously in the legislative branch, it's expected to be partisan. The executive branch the same way, but it sure would be nice to see the public have confidence that there's at least one branch where justice is blind, and it really is calling balls and strikes, and not not going into it trying to achieve a particular outcome. So for folks out here, if you're folks out in Clay County and Graham County and up in Mitchell County, what's your plan on how you're going to get to them and get them on your side come election day?
Yeah, well, I think number one, this is a statewide election, and I plan on making it a statewide election. And for me, one thing I can do is show up, and that's something that I am committed to doing, is coming out and meeting voters where they are in person. I'm going to put a lot of miles on the old Jeep, and but I love it, and hopefully through that, I think if folks get to see judges outside of their natural habitat and see them as for who they are, and let them judge me, let them get to know me. But yeah, we're definitely focused on making this a full statewide campaign. I think it's absolutely crucial that we try to get out to as many counties and as many communities as we can, from Cherokee, out to the Outer Banks. I think it's absolutely critical, because the reality is we are a statewide court. We decide cases from every community in the state, and that doesn't matter whether it's the big city of Charlotte or Sparta. It's our decisions have to be able to be applied in every one of those communities. We have to understand the impact our decisions are having in communities big and small, the impact they're having on individuals and their cases. So for me, that's one of the silver linings of judicial elections, is it does sort of force us to actually get out of the courthouse and actually have to talk to the folks that our decisions really do impact. So I think that makes us better judges, to understand the real world impacts of our decisions. and understand that we're not just deciding cases in a vacuum, that we have a duty. We have a duty to the people of North Carolina.
I'm curious, in the federal system, judges are lifetime appointments, and obviously here in our state, it's for a term of years. What's your perception on which, creates a better perception of impartial justice?
Yeah. I think there are pros and cons to both. I mean, I think you can look at the appointment process and say, well, those are political appointees, right? They're appointed because they have some favorable view of the current administration or whatever, and so you can even I mean, we see it, right? We see it on at the federal level and the U.S. Supreme Court level, where there's we see the political appointments and the confirmation fights, like which are hugely partisan. North Carolina likes to elect judges. It's in our state constitution, and in a way, it makes the judges answerable to the people, and so that's a much more kind of close relationship, I guess, in that Hamiltonian view in North Carolina of the people and their judges in the courts, and so I think there's an element to say that, like, if people are electing their judges, they're electing the folks they trust to be their judges. So I think there's a good argument to say that judicial elections actually may be a way of helping increase the public's trust of the judiciary and maybe create a more diverse bench as well.
So Toby, our judge, what can folks do? We have a nice audience of folks from across the United States as well as in North Carolina. How can they help you?
Well, number one, you can join our campaign at judgetobyhampson.com. You can learn more about me and sign up for updates. Also, this is a statewide campaign. It's going to be hugely expensive. I often joke that we're running a senatorial or gubernatorial campaign on a county commission budget. But this year, these races are going to be massively expensive. And so you can contribute online at judgetobyhampson.com, or you can go to Act Blue and find my page there. You can search Hampson. Amazingly, it comes right up. And then also it's actblue.com/Toby Hampson personal for contributions. That would be, honestly, that is at this stage of the campaign, that's the most critical piece, is allowing us to have the funding to onboard campaign staff and to get that message out truly statewide to the millions of North Carolina voters that we're going to have to contact.
Yeah, well, as you will hear from Mo and me, getting out there is part of the battle. I mean, spending time out with, not just with active Democrats, but real voters out here. And that takes money, folks. So please go to, it's judgetobyhampson.com.
That's right.
And it's Hampson. A little bit of disclosure here. I'm a supporter of Toby's and big fan of his. And Mo, can we potentially count you in as a supporter of Toby's as well?
Absolutely. Even though I'm biased against Campbell because I went to Central, I'll still do it.
All right. Well, cool. You've got at least 2 votes out here in Western North Carolina. Do you think you'll have a primary, Toby?
I am not anticipating a primary. No, my eyes are all straight on the general.
Okay, good. And any Democrats that are thinking about it, there is one empty seat. I guess they could run for that.
That's right.
But don't even think about it. Because you'll get a call from either Mo or me, and you're not going to like that. Ask Bill Baugh, former chair of the NC11 Democrats. Stay out of that one, Toby. But let's, we're at the end stages here. What we haven't talked about it lately, Mo. Bourbon. What are you drinking these days, Mo? Same thing?
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, there was a big article. I think I've mentioned before, I'd gotten to be a fan of Uncle Nearest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's stories in the last couple of weeks where they're in some serious financial troubles in the New York Times.
Oh, no.
So I'm trying to do my part to help keep them afloat. So,
all right, Toby, do you have a favorite libation that you drink in a safe environment?
You know, in the quiet moments, I do like to sip on a bourbon, but normally you'll catch me with an IPA, and you guys have a lot of really good ones out west. So.
Yes, that'll get you some votes out here.
Absolutely,
that's definitely a positive Western North Carolina answer.
So, and nobody else is listening here. It's just the three of us. So, are there any judges that carry flasks that you've seen or heard?
Well, that's the thing about a flask, David.
All right. You don't have to answer that. All right, Toby. Well, this has been terrific. Thank you so much for doing this. You're a great North Carolinian American, and Mo and I are with you 100%. Why don't we plan to do something out in here and get folks in a room to get to know you better?
Yep.
That makes sense. And you're welcome back to Muck You anytime to give folks an update. We like active candidates, and folks like hearing repeatedly, not just once. So you've got an open invitation. Anything else, Mo, before we close it out?
No. Hey, it's been great to get back into this. So we'll do it again.
Yeah. We'll get a little more active folks and start posting at least one a week from here on out. And we'll go from there. Judge, any final parting words?
Well, just again, thank y'all for having me. This has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed the conversation, and thanks for pushing me a little bit out of my comfort zone to do this. I think it's absolutely critical that we get the word out about these statewide judicial races. They are absolutely crucial, for our democracy. And so I appreciate the work y'all do to get the word out and the fight. So thanks.
That's right. And listen, folks, I mean, if you think judges are something that don't matter as much, ask Supreme Court Justice Riggs about that. And again, Toby's dissent, even though he lost at that level, was used again in the Supreme Court to justify returning Judge Riggs to the North Carolina Supreme Court. So again, Judge Hampson, we wish you all the best. Please be careful out there. Work your ass off. And folks, Judge Toby, Toby Hampson, HAMPSON.com. Do Mo and I a favor, sneak over there, throw the judge $25, and then next time 50, and then just keep doubling it every month until you don't have anything left, because this is pretty important. Thank you for tuning in to Muck You with Colonel Mo Davis and me, David Wheeler. If you like what you hear, help us keep shining light on the muck. Head to AmericanMuckrakers.com to donate and subscribe to our Substack for updates and exclusive content. Until next time, stay loud, stay vigilant, and don't ever say this in the judge's courtroom, but if you don't like it, muck you!
This has been Muck You, co-hosted by Colonel Mo Davis in Asheville and David Wheeler in Spruce Pine, North Carolina. Thanks to our guest today, the Honorable Toby Hampson, Judge on the North Carolina Court of Appeals. Muck You is produced by American Muckrakers, copyright 2025. You can learn more and donate at AmericanMuckrakers.com. Thanks for listening, and y'all come back for the next episode of Muck You.